Thank you, staff, councillors. Welcome to Corporate Service Committee meeting for the 20th of March 2026. We'll call this meeting open at 9:10 and we'll lead into any applications for attending via video link.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. We do have one application to attend via video link. Councillor Troy Stoles has requested that he has a medical appointment, and due to that he requires to be online. He is online now, and the council committee members may discuss this, but our code of meeting practice does allow it.
Yep. I'll move that and seconded. Seconded Councillor Shields, and all those in favour say aye. So we'll welcome Councillor Stoles into the meeting, and we'll move. Can you hear us? Sorry, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Perfect, thank you.
We'll move now to apologies, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. We have one apology. Councillor Fraser is unable to attend due to other work commitments.
Very good. Got a mover there. Move Councillor Shields. Seconded Councillor Williamson. All those in favour.
Aye.
Disclosures of interest.
None received.
And there being no public participation?
Not today, no.
In that case, we'll move forward to the Finance Committee reports. Please, Mr Phelps, if you can lead the way.
Thank you, Mr Chair. So on page 3, we've got Corp 3.1, which is effectively the Financial Summary Investment Report. Down the bottom of page 3, you'll note there that we've got a positive variance to actuals to budget of about 172,000, which compared to a negative variance in the previous period of December 25 of 1.71 million. Overall, we've had a bit of improvement in our revenue streams, as well as a little bit lower in our costs. With capital works still a negative to budget by about 1.74 million compared to 2.37 before, which is pretty well just works that are undertaken in advance of where the budget sits at the moment. Just looking at the highlighted areas coming through on page 4, we've got the operating revenue, which is up by about $2.3 million, which is about 4%. Overall, the main contributors behind that is our fleet management. It's is lower by a budget by about 66,000, which effectively is the timing of plant disposals coming through. So we've got a number of vehicles that are being replaced at the moment, which will be trading in those replaced vehicles, which will bring that back into alignment. People and cultural is higher by 73, just with that overall increase in our apprenticeship subsidies that we've been receiving from the New South Wales government initiatives. So we're just going through allocating those to the different specific departments at this point in time. So we'll bring that back into alignment, and those funds will be distributed across the organisation to where those apprentices are at the moment. Community services revenue is lower by $28,000. Overall, there's been a change in funding with the DCJ, the Department of Criminal and Justice, where we get a lot of our community services funding. So we're just going through doing the final assessment of those, the effect of that funding dip. It has an effect on both community services and youth services, which we'll have a look at shortly. Government Place is higher by $48,000, which is pleasing. It's still ahead of the curve at the moment in our budget, but we will see some effects coming through for the next probably 2 months as the facility draws to a close on the 30th of April and transitions towards a new boarding house model. So the personal care subsidies will start dwindling away. We do have about 5 residents that are still in the facility at this point in time, and likely to have 5 to 4 by the time the transition does appear. Early Learning Centre is higher by about 119,000. It continues to be strong with its utilisation of kids through the facility. It's been over 50 now for a few months, which has been quite pleasing. We've got over the months where we do have a lull over that December, January period when there's a change in school terms. So hopefully it'll improve as it's coming through towards the end of the year. Youth services, as I mentioned, with the community services, slower by about 33,000. Reduction mainly due to we had to return some funds from last year that was underspent in regards to the EIPP. Unfortunately, at the end of the 24-25 year, we had about 37,000 which wasn't spent from that funding. So we had to return that back to the department, unfortunately. Effectively now the Children Intervention Program has now moved to community services, and that's effectively the change in the funding stream coming through. Camping and caravan revenue is higher by 41,000. There's been continued utilisation of the Merriwall Caravan Park, which has been very pleasing. So that's continued to be pretty buoyant, especially for the Merriwall community and the tourism over in Merriwall. Real estate revenue is higher by about 113,000, which is it's maintaining a good higher commercial return at the moment. So we do have the Hunter Warbirds facility in that mix, so that has pushed it up a little bit, with that being on tap as a commercial rental now. Sales yard revenue is really buoyant at the moment, sitting up by about $300,000. It's been higher than expected cattle throughput due to the market coming through. The indicators of the domestic and export cattle has been quite buoyant. There is concern that with the dry weather that's been around that we're entering a destocking situation with a lot of our cattle. We're coming into winter where the feed is a little bit less.
I was just going to mention I was down there yesterday at the store sale. It was 2,000 there yesterday, and it was 3,000 at the fat sale, which is 5,000 through the week, which is above our requirements. But yeah, they're very busy down there, and it's good to see really strong prices as well for the agricultural sector, and especially with fuel at the moment. It's a critical piece of infrastructure for our local farmers, who don't need to be transporting cattle further than they need to be.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moving into waste revenue, higher than budget by about 298,000. So we've just had higher than expected annual access charges and landfill collections to date. So that's coming through. We noted that just recently we've received our RRA, which is our levy that we have to pay, being in a regulated area, and it's now topped over $100 per tonne, which is not a great thing. So it's $103.80 has been advised.
Yeah, and I'd hate to be in Cessnock because they pay twice that. But over the hill here, they don't pay any of it. So, and I think it's equitable for our regional area here that we didn't pay any neither, because how much of that do we get back?
We'd be lucky to get back 20% of that.
This is just a tax on consumers, and it's a tax that was put there to inspire recycling. Recycling peaked 5 years ago, so the tax has worked. It's still there. It's just a slush fund now. So, but anyway, that I'll get off my high horse. But yeah, to see those numbers going up, that's taxing all of our residents here.
Mr. Chair, I'll just add to that too. The Mayor and I, with the other 9 mayors and GMs from the Hunter JO, were in Parliament House yesterday. Penny Sharp was one of the ministers we met with, and the message in regard to waste levies, and not so much the cost, but more about the return of that. Rather than going into consolidated revenue, councils are saying if you are going to charge residents that much money, it should be coming back into the region. So that message got through loud and clear.
Thank you, and that's good to hear.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just my question is, you said that recycling peaked about 5 years ago. Are you suggesting, or are you saying that recycling has actually dropped away, that we're not collecting as much recycled recyclable
I think that's, and General Manager might have an answer here, but my discussions on that was saturated, basically, that yellow bin is being used as it should be.
Yes,
And,
through you, Chair, we measure what we call diversion from landfill, which is effectively materials that are reused and recycled, so that is no longer going into the landfill. That's consistently been sitting and hovering around about the 50% mark probably for 3 or 4 years now. We saw quite a steep diversion from landfill when the yellow bin sort of first came in, and as the Chair said, it's been relatively stable as a percentage term. That doesn't mean that the volumes aren't increasing, but that's just natural growth with population. But in percentage terms, it's been sitting around 50% diversion from landfill.
Yes, thanks for that. I'd just like to reiterate, though, that the actual levy itself, council does not keep any of that levy. It actually is then sent directly to the state government. The fees that we charge effectively is trying to maintain our facility. Moving into our general purpose revenue, it's higher by about 167,000. Again, a little bit higher in our annual rating yield, which is pleasing. Had a little bit lower than expected pensioner concessions to date, and a bit higher return in our investments. Public cemeteries higher by 45,000. We've had continued strong activity in site plot sales as well as interment fees. Town planning is lower by about $48,000, which is primarily a timing issue, just mainly with a quarterly voluntary planning agreement contributions, so that they were raised in March, so they'll come through into the next period we're reporting upon. White Park revenue was lower by 81,000. We've had continued strong small to medium events coming through. A little bit of the under budget at the moment is initially from the couple of months that we didn't have any events there when we were looking at putting the roof over back in July, August from the beginning of the year. But we have a good solid booking, as you'll see coming through in the White Park report coming through in the reports later on, that we have a full book of events that have been booked into that facility, and we'll have some large events happening over the course of the April-May period. Local roads revenue is higher by about 111,000. Contribution received from Lightsource BP for maintaining their road out there. So we've had a little bit extra cost in our maintenance budget, but also we've received an extra 111,000 from that, which is covering off that cost. Water revenue, which has been a bit of a topical item coming through recently, it's higher by nearly $1 million, so it's 929,000 higher. Just had higher user consumption charges coming through for the first 3 quarters of the year, especially in the last quarter. There's been a lot of use of water where we have pretty well seen a number of consumers go over the actual threshold of 100 kilolitres, which is a higher rate, and has gone up to the second tier, which makes the bill jump a little bit more. So it goes from $2.74 per kilolitre to $4.40 per kilolitre after you get over that initial 100 kilolitres. So with the dry conditions, a lot of water is being used. We've taken a lot of questions from the community in regards to it, and we've gone through and looked at those and made sure that the actual readings were correct, and provided feedback back to the community.
Yep, so I did read this figure and I thought, I wonder if that's a typo. But yeah, 929 up is a lot. And yeah, it did raise questions of how's our billing process, and we've seen a bit of that in the community. So I believe the rise in water rates was 5% on last year. Is that correct?
Correct.
And we've checked all of those, and all of those water bills are to the letter. So there's been a 5% increase in price, but consumption's through the roof.
All I can say is, personally, I note that I got my water rates the other day, and I was exceedingly surprised to see that I'd turned over 104 kilolitres, which means that on a daily basis, I think it's about a 90-day billing cycle, I'm actually using more than a kilolitre a day, and that's in a house with 2 people living in it. So I have to say I am surprised, and I don't water my lawn. I do not water my lawn. So although I've had a water leak in the roof somehow or other, and that's being attended to by an insurance claim at the moment. I've got no idea where that was coming from, but I've got a damaged ceiling at the moment.
Yeah, and on that, I think that's important for all residents. It's a time if you've got most likely, most of these billing issues are regarding damage to water infrastructure on the resident side of the water meter, and just be vigilant in seeing anything that's a bit undue, and you can lose thousands of litres of water very rapidly without too much notice.
Yeah, well, I've had a good look around my place, and I can't see any evidence that there's water leaking into the ground. So I don't know where it is.
Yes, thank you for that. And also just to note that for anybody listening, that there is fact sheets on the website in regards to testing your meters, going through the process of making sure that they are working accordingly. And if they are not working accordingly from those tests, obviously contact council. In regards to our sewer services, its revenue is higher by about nearly 300,000. We've had increased contributions from Section 64, a bit of trade waste user fees increase, as well as some interest return on investment. Coming through to the non-operating revenue and expenditure, lower than budget by about 200,000, lower than expected utilisation during that month of January, while a lot of our outdoor staff were off for probably about half the month. So effectively, we're running at about 400,000 per month. So it's just dropped away a little bit there. But we'll continue to monitor that item to make sure that we're recovering back our internal fleet hire charges.
Just a question there on Section 64 and it being applied to an operating revenue. Is that the...
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Normal process is it's an operating revenue coming through. However, it's then put into a restricted asset from that to offset it.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So that will be offset at what point? At the end of financial year?
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
which is our restrictions that we do hold in the mix with the RA restrictions.
So then that'll go into a non-operating.
Correct. Yep. Yep. So it's offset by a corresponding amount that goes off into a non-operating expenditure.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Moving into the operating expenses, here you can see we're nearly back on budget overall. Obviously there's a lot of ups and downs throughout the mix, so we'll just go through and just highlight those coming in. Overall corporate, the corporate entities and the admin costs, they're lower than budget by about $600,000. So we've had a few staff vacancies in that area and a few cost savings coming through. There is some timing issues in regards to it. We've had a bit of underspend in our fleet management area, which is nearly $250,000, so 246,000, plus information technology with our computer systems and licensing. It's lower by about 182,000. So they're the main contributors behind the 632, of which, as I said, has a bit of timing factor in it. But I think that we will be under budget overall by the end of the financial year in that corporate admin area. Community services admin costs lower by 103,000. Our revenue's down, but our costs are down significantly as well. So we've just had staff vacancies within the community services team, and with the funding variations that are coming in through Department of Community and Justice, they will looking at what the level of staffing will look like that over the course of the next couple of months. So just to make sure that we don't overstaff the facility. Government place costs are higher by about $394,000, even though our residents have declined over the last probably 3 to 4 months. The requirements from the department means that we have to maintain staffing levels. So we've had to maintain the level of staffing while we're getting less revenue. So unfortunately, it's been a bit of a double whammy. Early Learning Centre costs are higher by $80,000. Obviously, with the increase in utilisation with the number of kids over there, we've had higher staffing costs to maintain that the ratio between educators plus the students. So it's a little bit higher in staffing costs. Youth services costs are lower by $96,000. Obviously, with the IPP change in that function and ceasing at the end of September, those costs have remained lower. Camping and caravan parks are higher by about $36,000. Overall, we've reviewed the costs in this area. Some annual rates that have been charged a bit higher than expected. We've gone through and there's been a bit of an anomaly there, so we've gone through and done a correction in regards to that. And you'll see that that comes back into alignment in the next month. Economic promotion is higher by $45,000, just with the business services admin costs. We'll be portioning the cost of business services admin staff across the main business entities, which is Sale Yards, White Park and real estate, and that will happen during March. Private works costs are higher by about $30,000. Our private works demand has been up slightly, obviously by the additional costs. These will be recovered back through invoicing over the course of the next few months from those works that have been completed. Tourism promotions higher by about $78,000, just with the increase in our wages for our tourism staff after the Hunter Warbirds facility turned into a commercial lease. We're looking at the allocations of that and we'll bring a vote back in for the next meeting in regards to that to bring that back into alignment. Stormwater maintenance is lower by $64,000. It's just been lower than expected maintenance activities to date. We have flagged that with the dry weather that it might be a good time to actually get in and clean out a lot of the stormwater areas. So the infrastructure guys are actually looking at that at this point in time and doing that before the end of the financial year. Waste management costs are higher. We've had a bit of higher in our revenue, but also a bit higher in our costs. Just with the mobile garbage bin curbside collection, mainly relating to a lot of timing in regards to the billing cycle that comes through, but it's been a bit higher than expected. Governance costs are lower by $81,000, just had lower than expected general management costs within the area, and with extended staff and extended leave for some staff in that area. Health costs are lower by $31,000, just mainly due to staff vacancies in that area, which hopefully will be filled in the future. The convenience is higher by about $35,000. This is the cost of servicing our public conveniences around the area, the public toilets and so forth, has been higher than expected. Town planning costs are lower by about $93,000. It's been lower than expected costs due to staff vacancies, and also the associated cost with the two fully funded programs, the Energy Co Res funds, as well as the accelerated DAs.
I had a question on that. I was at an Energy Co meeting last night and they were spruiking they've spent $6 million on this program. Now, my understanding was there was $250,000 come to us, but did some of that go back, or what's happened with in short, how does this work?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Energy Co came to us probably going back now 18 months ago, and we provided a funding stream of $500,000 per annum for the next 3 years. effectively, when that pile of money come along, the way to spend it was very limited. So at the moment, we are just claiming back the costs that it's cost us. So we have a number of areas there where they're reviewing policies and programs in regards to Energy Co matters, and we claim those back on a quarterly basis. Now, $500,000, we'd be lucky to be probably maybe 150,000 for the year in actual physical costs. Energy Co are looking at it to see whether or not we'll extend the time of that $1.5 million that spreads out over the course of a number of other years other than 3 years, so that they can spread that, the effect of it and the use of our staff to undertake a lot of Energy Co policies and planning procedures coming through.
And the fund, how does this funding work? So is it an acquitted process? Is it works like a grant style process? And like I say, the Energy Co people we were discussing last night were very liberal on how much money was going out and how much was being used. I didn't think that was the case, but I didn't actually have the questions to give to them yesterday. I just know that it wasn't as simple and clear cut as what the company or the organisation are letting on.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we go through and we do a quarterly report to them, as well as provide the financial backing behind that. So we have a transaction listings of what our costs are, and we have to abide by those. So they're the costs that we do put through. We put a report on what we've actually gone through, what we've achieved, meetings and everything like that. So there is a fairly comprehensive process in regards to claiming the dollars back. They have tightened up in regards to that governance around that, and we continue to abide by it coming through. So our last quarter, we only claimed effectively about just over 40,000. So that's where, and that's legitimate costs. Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So we put a claim in. Do they ever knock all or part of those claims back, or basically, if you put your 40,000 in, you know you're going to get it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, normally, no. They will ask some questions about different things within the report. However, they have never knocked us back in regards to our claims that are going through. We're pretty thorough in regards to what we're claiming back from them. Also then, effectively, we've just recently received some additional funding from Energy Co that's part of that $1.5 million, another $350,000, which is pretty well being provided on the basis of doing a lot of feasibility studies for a lot of our infrastructure upgrades and so forth throughout the communities. So,
yeah.
And that will only be claimed when we do those feasibility studies.
Okay. No, it's good to hear. I was just a bit perplexed last night when we were discussing it, and not being involved operationally, it's a little bit hard to conceptualise. It is good to hear that there's prudence on the state government's behalf, and they're not wasting money because some of this in these terms. But at the same point, we just want to make sure that we're not out of pocket neither. But as long as that system is working well and equitably both ways, I think that we're happy as well. I'm as a councillor happy with that, and you guys can speak for yourselves.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So just to clarify, so I understand this, it's $1.5 million spread over 3 years, so 500,000 a year. I think what I'm hearing is that that's what potentially we can get. They don't actually give us a cheque for $500,000 each year. So there's not a situation brewing where we've got money that they then going to turn around and say we want the unspent back?
No, so through you, Mr. Chair, the $500,000 per annum for 3 years is an upper limit that we can claim. We've signed a deed to say that we will work with Energy Co, and we will provide resources from our end to assist with any, attending meetings, any provision of information that they request. It's really a request from them and a commitment from them that if they're seeking information, that we won't hold them up and be slow, that there'll be a process already built into the system, and we've been doing that. And as Mr. Phelps said, that's everything from my time down to our planners and engineers. So if there's a request for information or a requirement to attend a meeting or any work that is required, they've given us that guarantee that they will pay up to $500,000 per annum. It is still reliant on us doing the work in advance and then claiming it 3 months every quarter. So there's no money in our bank account that we have to give back because we haven't actually claimed it. So that's the first point. Second point is we can't make a big ambit claim at the end of the 3 years and say, give us all the balance of the money, because it's only for work undertaken.
Thank you all. Moving then down into building services, here we're a bit lower than budget by 62,000. Just staff vacancies within the building area underneath the building certifier and surveying roles. Animal control costs are lower by 67,000. Had 2 vacancies in that area, being the compliance officer and the trainee compliance officer. One of those roles has recently been filled, which is pleasing, and they're on the ground running now. Local government regulation enforcement costs are higher than budget by 32,000. We had to contract out our compliance work coming through to a contractor, so we've undertaken that work. That compliance officer that we've contracted also was doing a bit of work in the animal control space as well. So we should probably look at apportioning those costs across the 2 areas. So overall, we're under budget when you put them both together. Parks and garden costs are higher by 73,000. We've just had higher than expected expenditure in regards to maintaining a lot of our parks and facilities with our admin training costs and a bit of tree management. So we've had a bit of tree management costs coming through. Public libraries is higher by about 59,000, just had higher than expected salaries as we've had a change in a few staff members over there with a new library coordinator on. And those are now starting to settle down and come back into budget alignment. We've also had a bit of forward purchasing of our catalogues, so the costs in this area will continue to be monitored to the end of the year. Sporting grounds is over budget by the 178,000. Our cost to maintain our facilities, especially with the dry conditions and water that's been put onto the facilities, has increased the costs. We're continuing to maintain our grounds to a very good high standard, which has been tremendous and appreciated by the sporting community.
It has been, if I could break in there. Yeah, just from my cricket hat on at the moment, from the Cricket Association, from both the juniors and seniors, the Parks and Gardens have done a fantastic job of maintaining facilities, especially at Bill Rose, but we've also been using Harrison and Wilson Mary War, number 1. We'll call it number 1. But yeah, all grounds have been really good this season, and possibly a step up from where they have been in the past. So I do congratulate your staff for that, and I do thank them. And the amount of usage that we're seeing down at Bill Rose is quite impressive as well. Just from a local facility here, I know we're seeing lots. Great to see number 1 oval having the new picket fence around it. And if somebody wants to keep videoing me playing cricket, me getting across that fence at some point is going to be hilarious. The same thing up at Marundi. So great work on improvements across the Shire, and we've actually kicked Harrison back into gear this year, and it's been a really good oval over in Aberdeen as well. So yeah, across the ground. I know we're a little bit out of budget there, but they have done a great job.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moving into the swimming pools area, higher than budget by about 59K here, just with the additional water consumption, just to top up our pools over the pool season, plus also some repainting that was done on the Scone and Marundi pools, and we've flagged Merriwell Pool to be painted in the upcoming budget year. Moving into aerodrome, costs are lower by 63,000, so that model is continuing to work well with a contracted ARO and council staff maintaining the facility in the critical areas, so that's been quite pleasing. Footpath maintenance costs are lower by about 41,000. We've had limited activities in our maintenance on footpaths. At the moment, we're just going through and doing a number of inspections and doing a bit of grinding and so forth where there has been noted trip hazards. So we'll have a bit more costs going through that area over the course of the next 4 months. State roads is lower by about nearly $300,000. Just a bit lower in our routine maintenance as we've finished off a couple of major capital works programs over there, and also the lull during that January period. So you'll see some costs start to increase over the course of the next 4 months as we're coming up to the end of the financial year. As being depicted many years, Transport seem to get to a point where they want something done urgently right at the death of the year, based on the fact that they have a bit of extra funds available and they want to spend it. So we'll wait for that to happen and then pick up those works as and when they arrive. Local roads admin is higher by about 159, just higher than expected salaries. We've gone through and done a bit of a review of those cost allocations at the moment, so we'll continue to do that and do allocations across other service areas of the executive manager of infrastructure. So we're just going through and just reviewing those costs. Regional and local road maintenance is higher by about 933,000. Been a massive increase in our maintenance. At the moment, we're pulling back a little bit in our maintenance. We've gone hard probably for the first 6 to 8 months. We have a number of flood works damage which we're waiting on approvals from the Reconstruction Authority in regards to a couple of events that happened in May and July 25. So we're just waiting on that to be approved, and then we can undertake that maintenance as the back end of the year. And then that leads us into our flood restoration area there. As you can see, it's lower at the moment by 452, awaiting on those events to happen. Water costs are higher by about $380,000. Obviously, with the increased consumption, we've had increased costs of pumping stations and so forth. So we'll continue to look at that area to see whether or not there's any capital renewals that we can pick up out of there and put into our capital area.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a quick question. The works that are going on down there near the bypass, I'm assuming that's water or drainage or sewage or something. What's going on down there?
Through you, Chair. You'll notice that we're getting very close to having some lots released on Gundy Road. Those lots being privately developed. They're the first 57 lots of about, I think it's 300 odd lots. Yeah. But the whole site had to be provided with sewerage upgrades before any lots could be released. So as part of that subdivision on Gundy Road, the developers had to run a sewer line down through their own development, under the highway, and then connecting to our pump station down the bottom. So all of those works related to sewerage upgrades for that subdivision.
And they are developers' costs, are they?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Just having driven past that development on the way in, it's really starting to take shape now. I have to say the quality of the workmanship going on there is really good. I spend a lot of time sitting at traffic lights watching them, and I was quite happy to see they've put up a playground there today, and that's obviously a developer's initiative. We'll probably get stung with the maintenance of that one there, but nice to see that it looks like a very functional space.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Matthew Pringle and I had a bit of a private tour by the developer maybe 2-3 weeks ago. Obviously still under construction, so not complete, and they will need to get all the appropriate sign-offs before it does go onto the market, and we accept the works, but certainly it looked good at the time.
I have to say, just on a little thing, I was truly impressed with one of the workers screeding a pothole before they put the tarmac on it. I don't normally see that, but we were out there screeding and whack-a-packing just those small bits that that lip off on some of our infrastructure. So yeah, that's terrific.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moving into our capital area, here, as you can see, $1.7 million overspent at this point in time. As I said, a bit of timing issues coming through. Campbell's Corner development, about $250,000 overspent at the moment. The restoration works being reviewed. We do have some additional funding that will come in against that overspend there. So we'll bring that in at the next meeting. The town Christmas lights, obviously those costs won't happen, unfortunately, this year. We have included those again, however, into the next year's budget.
Yeah, and hopefully we might be able to find some private monies or even some grant monies there. But yeah, if we end up with it in community hands, I think I got a fair bit of feedback last year from community that is a priority of theirs, as small and insignificant as it is. Just to feel, especially on our very amenable new main street, which, you know, it's the town's looking really well.
Yep, no, definitely agree. Scone Park upgrade, they're a bit higher by about 146,000. So all the works have now been completed there, and we'll be funding that through probably Section 94 development contributions as a recreational area. White Park development costs are higher by about 106, as well as our internal roads in the complex and our bunker works, the actual material bunker works. So those areas will see continued support of White Park and increased events, we would hope, coming through, trying to pick up more medium-sized events, which will produce a lot more revenue for the facility. So the infrastructure works, which will be returned a positive return over the course of the next probably 5 years. Regional road reseals are lower by about, regional and local road reseals are lower by about 58,000. Going through and just finalising our reseal program at this point in time. We're all but done, so and fully spent the allocations coming in. Rural road resheets is higher by about 160,000. We've exceeded the current annual budget, so we probably will be pulling back a bit now on the resheeting program.
Just on resheeting, and I'll be part of this, but I've had multiple conversations this year with residents on why we're resheeting perfectly good roads when there's potholey roads, and the discussions I've had have been around the integrity of our sub base and our base and the cracks in the road and so on, and being part of maintenance. I've had successful conversations with those, but it's really highlighted to me that we need some sort of education program out there. It's a dangerous area, but how do we put that education process out there to say this is, and maybe in an engineering small talk or something with one of our engineers, that we could put a little video out to say, this crack in the road, this is what causes your pothole when that water goes in there. And so I wonder if we've got any
Mr. Chair.
capacity.
So first of all, resheetings for gravel roads, resealings for seal roads. But yeah, I understand you're probably talking about resealing. So we've done this. I think I did a video for councillors some time ago on this. Maybe we can do something a little bit more professional than that for external work. The way I've always explained it is that it's like painting your house. You paint it before the timber rots. When you see the paint flaking, that's time to rub it back and hit it with a second coat. And reseals are that. If it gets to a damaged road, a reseal won't protect it. It's about protecting the roads that are in good condition before they get to that bad condition. So more than happy to do some education, promotion around that and explain it. And we probably might hold that prior to the next resealing program. So it's timely, but yeah, we'll get our comms team to have a look at that.
Moving down into our next area, which is the Idaville Road, a little bit higher than cost at the moment by 70k, just some late costs coming through, all funded from Roads to Recovery program, so we'll allocate some additional funding against that. Barrington Forest Road, with the late cost for our guardrail, we've got grant funding that's been attributed to that, so we'll bring it through a vote for that and put that into the mix. The Scone CBD, just with the compliance works from the the high pedestrian access. So we've had additional costs coming through in regards to finalisation of the 40k zone in the main street. Cost of investigating our mains work at the Scone Reservoir and Barton Street is higher by 64,000. This is a new budget area, so we'll come through and we'll fund that through the reserve, the water fund reserve. But it's pretty well linking up our reservoirs down to Barton Street. That's the first investigation works. We acquired that land going back about a year ago now, and we're just looking at bringing the piping down through that easement now and down to Barton Street to make it more equitable for water usage.
So if we've spent 64 on that now, that's quite a big project, isn't it?
Big pardon?
Mains and valves in that corridor in order to ensure that we provide good pressures and maintain access to the future subdivisions in Scone. All of that pipe work, the valves, the valve pits all need to be realigned and tidied up, and then once we understand the full design, we can get a full costing, and we'll let council know what the full costing is then. But I can't give you an estimate at this stage, but it is going to be a large project.
Yeah, so $1 million wouldn't be out of the question here.
Possibly. It'll depend on how much water main we choose to replace. The tricky thing with that is it is right next to the reservoirs, so taking any of those mains offline will disrupt water supply. So we may even have to do temporary lines while we're doing those lines. So it gets quite tricky, and just getting the coordination right will be a big part of the job.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and what you're talking about is that housing development up there in Barton Street. That's what you're referring to?
No, so in Barton Street we have our main reservoirs for the water supply for town. Coming out of those reservoirs is a series of pipes that then deliver the water to the reticulation system. All of those pipes go through a single corridor up a gravel road, servicing a parcel of land just beside the reservoir. So we've purchased that parcel of land. It's now in our ownership. Previously it wasn't. So we now have at least some de-risked that situation of not having access over that land. We own that land, and it could potentially be a parcel of land that is developed for future housing, but we wouldn't consider that until we get this water main issue sorted out. So once we've done the water main works, we can then look at maybe offsetting some of the costs through developing the parcel of land, but we need to do this water main and valve pit work first.
Oh, thank you, Mr. GM. Moving down to the bottom line now. So as you can see there's a total variance year to date of 172k. Our budget position hasn't changed. We didn't bring through any votes or surrenders for the current month. We're going through finalising our budget, our Depot budget for the 26-27 year, which effectively will indicate any capital works that are being deferred, so we can bring those through. So there'll be a large vote and surrender request coming through for the March quarter review. That we'll be holding next month in April. Overall, our bank funds on page 11 there, bank funds is about $16.9 million. of which the majority of that is sitting in our investment portfolio. So we've got that put away, getting interest on it. As there was no corporate services meeting for the, and we were reviewing the December quarter end, we've got both the January and February schedule of investments attached to the report. External loans at the end of February was $26.2 million. Again, we've got a schedule identifying the outstanding. Internal loans with our water and sewer funds remaining the same at the end of December. We've got another quarterly instalment coming up to the end of March. So we're sitting at 4.5 million. Restricted assets, overall, we had to dip in, as noted previously, into external reserves for the month of January, and it's likely that we will continue into the February month from our recent review of those restricted reserves. Obviously, we're still waiting on. We were hoping to get some the grant funding that's owing to us over the course of February. However, that's been stretched out probably into now March, April. A lot of those are around the disaster relief, which I've had a recent meeting with Reconstruction Authority and found out that what we need to do to try and fast track those funds coming through. So that was a good, eventful meeting.
And this has been problematic, hasn't it, across all shires, and has caused cash flow dilemmas for many. We're no Robinson Crusoe here.
Very true, Mr. Chair. They were very, very helpful in the meeting and provided some aspects on where to go to. I think a lot of it is coming around the transition period, transitioning from transport to the Reconstruction Authority. So they did have a changeover in the control of the disaster fundings and disaster processes and procedures. And the guys from Reconstruction Authority, can never get the name around, Reconstruction Authority, are very amicable about trying to get funds out to councils now. So it's just a matter of just waiting for those to hit the can.
Yeah, and if they're on this list here, which is an extensive list, that means we've done the works.
Correct. Yep.
So we've already dipped into our own money within general revenue and the like, and now we're just waiting on this money to be returned. So we've made that commitment to the community that we'll repair those roads, and that work has been done timely and without delay. We're just waiting on money from the state for that.
Effectively, at the moment, I think we were in the external reserves by about $2.3 million for the month of January. That's reduced down to $1 million by the end of February. So, and going forward, once we receive this grant funding, it'll be back into positive territory.
Yeah, I'm sure that will be a relief. But I think you'll feel you've got the support of councillors that we are offering us a timely service, and we're repairing roads and we're repairing damage as we see fit, in the surety that this money is coming, but it's just a cash flow delay, which is frustrating for everybody in the finance department and above, no doubt. But thank you for explaining.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just following up on I think we'd have to call it the Adverse Auditor General's report. Has there been any repercussions in terms of what the state government may or may not have said in respect to that?
No, so through you, Chair, I was in Sydney yesterday. Part of our meetings were with the Minister for Local Government and his senior staff. I spoke to his senior staff yesterday. There's no concerns, or there was nothing expressed in our conversation yesterday at least. The Minister was sent a letter following our last council meeting, which was the letter that we sought to request his permission to continue to utilise restricted assets for the next 12 to 18 months while we resolve this cash flow issue. I've now sent 2 letters, one to the Minister directly and one to the Office of Local Government, which was back in December last year. We haven't actually had a response to either of those letters yet. Having said that, Mr Phelps and I have had probably monthly meetings with the finance team or the performance team at the Office of Local Government. They're well aware of the situation, they're monitoring, they're being provided cash flow statements and long-term financial plans by Mr Phelps and other information as they request it. So to get to your point, there's been no negative ramifications other than the fact that we still don't have an answer, and still technically each time now there's been a January breach and a February breach, it is a negative, I guess, reputational impact on council because we haven't been given permission to do so.
However, our roads are functional.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Moving into our capital expenditure report, as you can see there, year to date, our overall revised budget is $34.7 million. Spent to date $23.5 million, which a lot of that is Main Road 358. 67% spent to the end of February. Just moving into our schedules that we do have in the mix. So overall, just got a summary page there of our different funds coming through, and then our cash at bank situation. As you can see how it drops away there. By the end of the year, you'll see that starts ticking up as we get these grant funds coming through. So that'll improve itself over the course of the next 4 months. Our financial investments, we had 13 million on investments in January, increased to 15 in February, just with a bit more money in our cash management account come the end of the month. So overall, sitting okay. Our loan schedules, as I mentioned earlier, $26.2 million outstanding at the end of February, continuing to reduce as we pay down our loans. Our restricted assets schedule is there with our forecast out to the end of the year, which is where we anticipate our cash to end up. So we're expecting to get up to around that $24 million in cash from the 16 that we're at the moment. Then we have from 27 through to page 35 is just our capital works summary. So just to highlight our main costings that we do spend in our capital works, just highlight it all together there so you can get a good overview of what capital renewal programs we've been undertaking during the past 8 months and what we've got coming forward into the next 4 months. Any questions? More than happy to take.
Very good. All right, councillors, if there's no further questions or comments, we don't have any votes on any budgetary moves today, so are we happy to move? Move Councillor Shields, seconded Councillor Stoles. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. The ayes have it, and we'll move forward to the property update, please, Mr. General Manager.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just take you through the highlights. You can see our rental properties are still performing quite well. Commercial property really doing high performance there with our actual year-to-date income exceeding our budget by a significant amount, about $100,000. So we're probably about a third up on our rental income there. So that's performing well, and we expect that to come in well over budget by end of year. Sorry. Oh, sorry, I thought you heard.
No, I just said very good. Good news. But you're very touchy there. Have you got something to tell me?
No. The other point I wanted to bring to this committee's attention was the Rosedale Estate. This committee considered this just before Christmas and resolved to put it to the full council for consideration. That went back to council in February. One of the outcomes of the February council meeting was that Council was quite supportive of development of that immediate northern zone and wanted to see a master plan developed. What I've provided is two drawings. One is sort of the long-term strategy for Rosedale if that was ever to be developed. What I will point out there is that the yellow highlighted area on that first diagram is the area that we're focusing on immediately. The purple area could be developed with the existing sewerage that's in place. So without having to put any more infrastructure in the ground, you could develop that purple area as well. The blue area is the long term. It needs quite a lot of infrastructure to put in, and the current sewage system would never support that anyway. It can't drain to that area. And that was the predominantly the area that King of the Ranges have been utilising. So I draw your attention to the second figure, which is what we're suggesting would be the short to medium term master plan for that site, which is proceed with the development of those yellow initial parcels on the northern end of Rosella Street and retain the balance, not really put too much effort into the balance of that. That could be dog parks, walking tracks, as well as used for King of the Ranges. I got the impression from the council meeting that the council was keen to use that as a broader community use rather than just for the King of the Ranges, and I think the King of the Ranges are quite happy for that to be utilised for those days, those couple of days that they use it is the only time they really need access to it. The rest of the time I think it could be done. So if the committee is generally supportive of this, we can sort of move that back out to the community.
Sure. Councillors?
I've got no objection on it.
No.
I think those diagrams
Microphone.
are. Oh, sorry. I think
Sorry, Troy
those.
can't hear you.
I think those diagrams are representative of what we decided at the February ordinary meeting. I'm thinking.
Yep.
No, I totally agree, and as far as the master plan goes, that looks good. As far as other users of this facility, I mean, you've got dog trials up there shortly.
Yep.
That community uses this facility a lot. The Pony Club uses this facility. There's quite a few other sporting groups that would like to use this a little bit more. There's plenty of facilities up there with what's already built, and I think my understanding from my conversations are people are happy for that space just to be left out the back.
Yep.
And so they have a communal space to run their horses and whatever. I think this is positive that we've got that bit of extra development up there. I do appreciate your mapping here and discussions of sewer constraints. I think that's very informative, and I thank you for bringing that to the committee. But no, I'm personally very supportive of what's happened here. Outside of that, have we any more questions or comments, councillors? That's all right. That being the case, have I got a mover tonight? Move Councillor Shield, seconded Councillor Stiles. All those in favour? I think the ayes have it, and we'll move forward into the grant report, please.
Yeah, thank you, councillors. As per normal, we've got a list of notifications that we've received in February and March. The first grant there that's listed is the delivery of free health and development checks within the ELC. We weren't successful in Category 1, but we did get Category 2, which you can see is a $6,000 grant, so something's better than nothing. The second one, I alluded to the fact, I think at the last meeting, that we had received notification, but it hadn't been included in the report because it only just come through prior to the report. But that's that Safer Local Roads and Infrastructure Program. That's for close to $5 million, and we were unsuccessful in getting that one, unfortunately.
Was that for the section of road at Owens Gap where there's a bit of black spot issuing?
No, this was further west. So basically from where we finished the Murdering Hut Gully and heading in a westerly direction.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's disappointing. That is in need of repair and renovation, but we have done works there from Murdering Hut Gully there just to fix some of that, and I'm sure we'll just keep chipping away.
Yeah, and we'll reapply again, see if we can get some funding through that program. The other two tables show a list of grants that have been submitted in February and March, and also other grants that have been submitted prior to that that we're still waiting on notification. You'll see there's two, or at least one large grant there, which is the emergency works funding for reconstruction, the 5.7 million, and there's also the one above that, which is the 4.8 million. Both those packages are for emergency works, but it's for works that we have not yet undertaken yet. So it's not that we've committed any funding, but we would need, I guess we've taken the position we're not going to do those works until we have certainty of the funding coming through. Happy to take any questions on any of those grant matters, councillors.
There being no further questions or comments, I thank you for the explanation there on the latter. I fully support what's happening there, but can I have a mover, please, for the moved? Councillor Shields, seconded Councillor Stiles. All those in favour? The ayes have it. We'll move on to the Airport Management Committee meeting and noting the record of proceedings.
Yeah, thank you, councillors. I guess this is, I think, the second or third airport committee meeting where we've been unable to get a quorum of community members. So it is difficult. We continue to put up record of proceedings rather than minutes, but I can run through the highlights. Probably the financial matters are probably of interest to council. We had a deficiency in budget of 274,000, but that is a positive variance to budget of 14,000, so it is showing an improvement. Revenue's up with some additional landings, so we've seen continued good landings. And if councillors go back to the actual report that was distributed to the committee, you'll see that our landings really haven't been impacted too much at all, and we're still seeing across the board high volumes of activity at the airport. There's probably not a lot more unless councillors have got specific questions to ask in regard to the airport.
Through you, Mr. Chair, have we had any resolution of, what's the name of the organisation, MacJet, the big fire tankers? Have they shown any willingness to even meet part of the debt they have with us?
Councillors, that was a confidential report that went to council last time. I'll provide a confidential update at some stage. I couldn't do it at part of this meeting if you wish.
It's long, but just a question on, we've got Warbirds over Scone next weekend.
Yep.
And that should be an excellent draw for tourists into the area. What's been our involvement out at for that event, and what are we likely to see through the town over the weekend? If I could draw you to that.
Yeah, thank you. So you'll probably recall that when we went out for expressions of interest for the lease of the Warbirds facility, we also sought expressions of interest for the running of the Warbirds over Scone event. So that was all even though run as two separate expressions of interest, the submissions that we received for Ross Pay and Paul Bennett to lease the Warbirds also included their submission to run the event. So that was all wrapped up into one deed of agreement. So as part of that, our involvement has been simply as, I guess, the council involvement rather than the operator involvement in this instance. They have undertaken all the event management. They've been dealing with all the arrangements for the event. Our requirements have simply been to provide some equipment for their utilisation for the event. We've had to sign off on some of the event arrangements, but as a council rather than an operator. So it's been a fairly smooth process. I know they've been chasing some additional accommodation. We've given them permission to utilise some of the land at the airport for camping and the like, and I believe that is progressing. They've sought to utilise other spaces around the Shire. We haven't been able to accommodate every request, but wherever we can, we've been able to give permission for some camping. I think they were looking at camping at White Park as well. One of the difficulties with that is there's another event at White Park that weekend, so that's going to be awkward and it possibly won't work. But I believe Bill Rose is going to be tidied up and we'll try and make Bill Rose available as well.
Yeah, well,
Through you, Mr Chair, I was out at the Scone Aero Club, I think it was last week, and there were compliments paid to Upper Hunter Shire Council for mowing work and activities that have been done in preparations for Warbirds. So I think there's a very positive feeling about how this is going to go, and I'm hearing that more than 5,000 tickets have been now pre-sold. So I did hear a concern that how are we going to cope with all those people who will pay on the day or pay in this coming week. But anyway, apparently it's looking like a particularly good event. And the other thing is, I noticed down at school where I work, there's a poster on there having a STEM and Aviation Day out there on the Friday, which I think is a fantastic innovation. So that's very positive, I would have thought.
very good. All right, could I have a mover to note the proceedings? Move, Councillor Shields, seconded, Councillor Stoles. All those in favour? Guys have it, and we'll move along to the Sale Yard Committee meeting and adoption of the minutes.
Yeah, thank you again, Mr Chair. Probably the highlights for the sale yards is the volume increase that we've been seeing. Pretty much all of this financial year has continued, even as late as this month. We've seen 3 consecutive weeks of sales, which each have exceeded the previous weeks of sales. So I think they're some of the highest sales we've seen in probably 7 or 8 years, certainly in my time at council. With those high sales brings an influx of cash injection, which is great. We will still have a deficit budget, but the overall position, well, when I say deficit budget, we may not for this financial year. We may actually see a positive budget, but with the accrued deficit budgets of previous years, we're not out of the woods, you know. So I think we've carried probably $3 million or something, of $3.5 million of deficit in past operating costs. So it'll take a number of years before we pay that off and then break even again. But it is good to see the numbers. I have provided a number of confidential updates to this report, and if councillors wish to discuss that, I would recommend we go into confidential. But they are around the lease submission with the Scone Upper Hunter Regional Sale Yards Committee, agents, and where that matter is at. So, as I say, that's part of a confidential attachment which has been provided as part of this report. Don't need to go there unless you wish to, don't need to go into confidential issue unless you wish to discuss that further.
I personally would like to discuss this at some depth. What's the councillor's view of maybe just discussing this in a confidential, just so we don't slip up here? It is a financial matter.
One mechanism, Mr Chair, could be to defer this item till the end of the meeting. We'll come back to this item and then go into confidential at the end.
All right. If we could, if I've got a, would I have a mover? Could I move that we cease standing orders and discuss this at the end in a confidential?
Yeah, I'll move that. Yeah.
You will second that. Thank you.
I'll second that.
Right. Thank you.
Okay.
All those in favour, and we'll leave this until the end, and we'll go forth on to the Watt Park Management and Development Committee meeting and endorsing the minutes.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. This is a committee that is well attended, and we do have a quorum. Our most recent meeting was only last month, but what's actually before you is the 10th of December minutes. So this is the minutes from that meeting, which it takes a little bit of time to go from actual committee meeting, prepare the minutes, get it all assessed and get into the agenda papers. So this is the 10th of December papers. It says 10th of December 2026 in your attachments. We haven't quite got there yet, so it's actually 2025. Again, Mr. Phelps sort of touched on some of the financial aspects when he went through his budget report. Whilst we're seeing a deficit there and a little bit behind budget, certainly the committee at the most recent meeting were very complimentary of the new roof and the extension of the roof, and the couple of events that have been held there, we've had very good feedback from that. So I believe now that those works are done and the 60 now powered sites, we're going to see quite a bit of progression there at White Park. Probably the biggest issue at White Park at present is ensuring that we can accommodate all users without conflict. Yeah. And I don't mean physical conflict. It's just conflict of use of time, time and space. So ensuring that each user can have access to their site when they want, without conflicting with another user using it at the same site, is going to be probably our biggest challenge moving forward. And one of those is utilising some of that grassed area for maybe alternative means, other than, say, show jumping and the like. It could be parking or it could be camping for other events without damaging it, so it's still available for the users when they come back. So we're going to work through that over the next month or two.
Councillors, I'm on this, well, I was an alternate, but I am now on this meeting, I believe. No, not yet. That'll have to be resolved.
It'll have to be resolved coming, yep.
However, I attended, nonetheless. And yeah, I concur with what the General Manager is saying there. It is a complicated little committee because there are a lot of interests, and it's been a challenge for quite some time. But I personally think the committee's getting along as well as it has, and we're seeing some progress forward. Great to have those development items up and going. The roof has made a big difference to cattle welfare and to the organisations that use it. And the powered sites are a boon. And also what's been happening from the operational side, so we've discussed in these meetings, is a greater focus on collecting camping fees, which is something that I think Councillor Shields, we've had discussions about prior, and staff are doing a much better job of enforcement, and that seems to be working, and we're working through maybe automation or something that will be a long-term sustainable option. So just my viewpoint on White Park, it is good to see that extra bit of development. You will also notice the site is a little bit more organised now. It's got the compound in the back, where it was a little bit messy prior. We've got the compound in there, and everything is organised and in place, and I think we're looking well forward at developing that site while still providing the best use for all users, or the best compromised use for all users. Now, get off my soapbox. If anybody wants to move that we note this, I'll move it, and Councillor Shields seconded. All those in favour?
Aye.
We have the ayes. And we should move ahead. Requests for donations. I believe there's 3 requests for donations that have been dealt with.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. As with delegation authority, I've approved the first 2. I've refused the third one, which was a colour run event down on the foreshore at Newcastle. I could not see that it with our policy of developing or supporting our region.
Yep. I have to say I'm supportive of all of everything that's been decided here myself. I see there's successful outcomes for Merriwa and Murrurundi, and in fact the working dog trials that I was speaking of prior up at Rosedale, they've received a $400 donation amount, the maximum amount, and also Harrington Circus Show. So I assume you're going to the circus shortly, Councillor Stoles.
Great event not to be missed, Mr. Chair.
Never misses a chance. And that'll promote Merriwa and give a little bit of excitement out there. Yeah, so have we got any questions or comments before I take this to a vote? There being none, have I got a mover? Councillor Shields, second. Councillor Stoles, all those in favour?
Aye.
We'll move along here to responses to previous questions. If we just want to note previous questions and answers there. Have I got a mover? Moved, Councillor Shields, seconded, Councillor Stoles. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye, and thank you for staff for going into that. And if I can have a mover, just to move us into confidential to deal with this sale yard item, I'll move that from the chair. Seconded, Councillor Shields. All those in favour?
Aye.
And the ayes have it there, Robin, and